Today we're going to talk about informative writing. Now, what is informative writing? Informative writing is a writing meant to teach the reader about a topic or idea. Now, this is a bit easy to remember because the word informative actually has the word inform in it, which means to officially tell someone about something or give them information, which is exactly what you do in informative writing. So in order to inform someone about a topic, you're going to need a lot of facts and details. Here's an example of informative writing from a 4th grader writing about giant pandas. Now, we'll talk about this writing in particular more later. Now, let's talk about some more examples of informative writing. Here's Sally here. Now, she's been asked to write an informative writing and she starts brainstorming some ideas. She comes up with, maybe I'll write about elephants and how they live. I'll write about volcanoes and how they're formed. And then she thinks, I'll write about the Egyptian pyramids or how a cell phone is manufactured. All 4 of these are great informative writing topics. Whoa, we better get out of here. Now, let's talk about what is not an informative writing, because it can get a little confusing. Let's say Sally wants to write about elephants, but she wants to write about a time that she saw an elephant on vacation. This is more of a personal narrative than it is an informative writing. Though she might be giving details about elephants in the writing, it's more of a personal narrative. Instead, if she was to write about elephants and where their habitat is and what they like to eat, that would be an informative writing. Now, informative writings are everywhere for all kinds of topics. For example, Earth, turtles, rocks, volcanoes, basketball, all of these are examples of informative writings. These are all nonfiction, but that doesn't mean that all nonfiction are informative. These are all informative because they all teach about the topic with facts and details. There's no opinions in these. Whoa, let's keep going. Now that you've seen a couple examples of informative books, let's see if you can spot the informative books here. These are the informative books, the National Geographic and the Dolphins book. These 3 are fiction books, and though the I Survived looks like it might be an informative writing, it's actually a historical fiction. It's about the Titanic, but the characters are fictional inside of it. Therefore, the only informative writings are the National Geographic and the Dolphins. Now let's look back at that giant pandas writing from earlier. Let's look at the text features that an informative writing has that other writings don't have. For example, subtopics. These 3 bolded topics, which are in the form of questions, are subtopics. Underneath each one of these topics, you'll find answers to the questions that are posed. These are called subtopics. Furthermore, you'll find photos, maps, graphs, etc. that will tell more about the topic, and this helps the reader to understand more of what the author is writing about. Sources. Sources are where the author gets their information from. Maybe part of the source is themselves and their experiences, but authors also use different sources. Like here, they used a science website or Ducksters.com. Those are sources, and this is important because if you don't write the sources at the bottom, it's considered stealing the information from others. It's a fancy word called plagiarism. And lastly, if you were to read all 3 of these subtopic paragraphs, they're full of facts and details about giant pandas. These are just some of the text features that you'll find in an informative writing.